Welcome to the Playbook presented by the Leaders Lab. I'm Ken Eslick, and if you're a leader or founder who wants to hire top talent, scale your business, and sell for more, you're in the right place. Each week, Onika Kwatsha and I bring you practical, actionable advice that you can put to work immediately to make an impact in your business today. And now, here's this week's episode. Welcome back. Ken Eslick here once again with Onika Kwatsha. Most people think their life is controlled by goals, but I don't think that's true. I think most people are controlled by their identity, by the story they believe about themselves. Because over time, people tend to act in alignment with who they believe they are. If someone believes they are unhealthy, they'll eventually return to unhealthy habits. If someone believes they're not disciplined, they'll sabotage their own consistency. If someone believes they're not worthy of success, relationships, money, leadership, or happiness, they will often unconsciously create behaviors that reinforce those beliefs. And what's fascinating is that people can actually intellectually want one thing while emotionally identifying with something completely different. And that's why people can lose weight and then gain it back, build momentum and then destroy it, get promoted and feel like an imposter, achieve goals and still feel unfulfilled, because behavior usually follows identity. And today I want to talk about the power of your identity, how it shapes our lives, and while changing your life often starts with changing the way you see yourself. And again, I'm here with Onika. Hi, Onika.
Hey Ken, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm excited to talk about this.
Same here. I've got a ton of questions for you. So if you're ready for the questions, I'm ready to shoot.
Of course, let's do it.
So Ken, to open up this conversation, I wanted to ask, when you think about identity, what's the biggest realization that you've had in your own life about how your self-image affected your behavior and your results?
As I started to learn conceptually about identity and how it was tied to our behaviors, I realized, again, it's one of those things that once you see it or understand it, it's there forever. It's like you can't unsee it. You can't unlearn it. And there were areas in my life where my identity was really, really strong. And so were my results. So like if I had a very strong self-image, self-identity around being fit, then all of my actions and results from the actions tend to follow. In the areas where I thought I was weak, I performed weak. You know what I mean? Like it's just lockstep. It's like you will not rise above your identity, or you at least won't rise above it and stay there. You might visit temporarily, but it'll actually feel uncomfortable. It sounds weird, but sometimes people will go from making X amount of money and then get a windfall overnight, win the lottery, something like that. And there's stories, countless stories about all the lottery winners that have won the money and it's gone in a few years. It's not because they're stupid. I think a lot of people are like, well, maybe they're just not bright. It's not that at all. It's they never felt they deserved it in the first place. They never saw themselves with that level of wealth. Honestly, what that kind of change should be accompanied with is a coach or a psychiatrist that's going to help you adjust your identity to your new
Mhm.
reality so that you could actually keep the money. Because until you see yourself with a certain amount of money, certain amount of success, certain job, certain girl, certain guy, then you're not going to keep it or even get it to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other things that has come up when we've talked about this kind of thing before is how much we kind of fight to preserve that identity, even if it's hurting us.
Yeah.
Why does the brain prefer the comfort of a painful, familiar identity over that uncertainty of a positive change?
Because the brain's not wired for change. And we talked about this in a recent episode, right? Our brains are designed to keep us safe. They look for reinforcing evidence. We talked a lot about global beliefs. Global beliefs play into our identity. Global belief or even individual belief about myself might be I can never lose weight and keep it off. I can never lose weight and keep it off. I just keep telling myself and telling myself that. You think about the stuff you say to yourself and how many times you say it, good or bad. It's a beautiful day. There are people who literally just, it's God, it's a beautiful day today. Everybody's so nice today. they just repeat that stuff overall, and they tend to have really good days. And there's other people who are like, everybody's out to get me, and they're repeating that all the time, right? So our brains are just designed to repeat or reinforce, look for
Mhm.
reinforcement. What we think is already true is the stuff that we're repeating to ourselves. The stuff we're repeating to ourselves has a lot to do with how we have identity in a particular part of our life. So if you change your identity in a particular area, and I don't mean just like write it down on a piece of paper, and instead of one day you're like, oh, I'm a fat blob and I'll never be in shape, and the next day I'm going to be an MMA fighter or the most fit person on the planet, right? But if you went from, gosh, I've never worked out, I'm not great at it, I hate working out, I'm overweight, and then you just shifted a little bit to, you know what? Maybe I'm just an unrealized athlete, right? Maybe an athlete that hasn't yet been through training camp. And right now, my identity is going to be that I'm going to go through training camp. And at the other end of training camp is an athlete, right? Maybe not a world athlete, but a neighborhood athlete, right? There's an athlete in there, right? So the more we change that over time, it's hard to jump though from, like I get nervous when people say, let's say someone has historically been making, $50,000 a year, and then they say, well, I'm going to go with 500,000. I'm going to change my identity to 500,000. I'm like, well, unless your brain has conceptualized the exact sequence of steps that you need to take to go from here to there, that's a hard one to execute. But if
Yeah.
it's 5 to 50 to 75 and there's a clear path in how to get there, total game changer. And then you can continue to change and should
Mhm.
continue to change these identities as you go through. And when I say identities, a lot of people talk about the power of your identity, like one identity. I don't think we have one identity. I think we have multiple
Mm.
identities, which is different than multiple personalities. In other words, you have an idea, Annika, of who you are physically. You have an idea of who you are mentally. You have an idea of who you are at work. You have an identity in who you are in relationships. And some of those identities are probably really, really empowering and good. And you probably get great results in those areas because you expect to, maybe could be improved, right? So I know for myself, I have identities right now that in particular areas of my life that could use improvement. I've got some that are doing really well, got some that are doing okay that could probably use a kick in the pants.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely get that, Ken. Next, I want to talk about the intersection of our goals and our identity and shifting it into the work context. How does a leader shift their team's mindset from just hitting a quarterly goal metric to actually embodying the excellence required to sustain that, the identity?
In a way, a KPI for a minute. And the reason why is goals can be pretty empowering for people that already have a strong identity in that area, right? Then I think goals are great. KPI watching as an individual a lot of times is around lowest common standard. It's like I don't have a great identity in this. I don't have a lot of confidence in this because my identity's, let's just use sales and say if my identity isn't great in this area, and when I mean great, I mean, there are people who each and every year that they're in sales already know in advance they're going to hit President's Club because that's their identity. And they've already been there before and they know that they'll just do whatever it takes to get there again. If it takes 5 more calls, they're going to make them. If it takes working 30 minutes after 5 o'clock instead of clocking right out, they're going to do it. And their leaders know it too. So their leaders support and confirm and reinforce the behavior and give them money for doing it. So the difference is when it's just number bound, like I just got to hit a number, there's nothing
Mhm.
meaningful about it. Let's take it outside of work and go to something personal. Most people at one time or another had to lose a few pounds, right? And then we all know people who have lost weight, gained weight, lost weight, gained weight, and now we're just eating pills to get rid of fat, right? The challenge is the identity hasn't really changed for most of those folks. I've got people in my personal life that have actually had surgery to shrink their stomachs, put a band in over the top so that you can't eat more, and still found a way to go through all of that trauma and surgery and then eat right back through it. Why? Because there's no change in who they really are as a person in that particular area. You can be thin and identify with being fat. You can be rich and identify with being poor. And you'll work your way back there if that's where you think you belong.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
You know, most leaders don't build organizations, they build cages, and you can't grow if everything depends on you. Whether you're a founder scaling your company or a corporate leader running a high performance team, growth starts with people. And that's why the first pillar at the Leaders Lab is building the right team. Before you scale, before you sell, before any big initiative, you need the right leaders around you. Our team has placed over 1,000 executives into Fortune 500 and fast growing startups and supported over 75 acquisitions along the way, helping leaders create over $1 billion in enterprise value. At the Leaders Lab, we help you hire top talent, scale with confidence, and build a business or team that can thrive without you. Take the free Scale Up scorecard at theleaderslab.co or email me directly, ken@theleaderslab.co, to find out how ready your organization really is for growth. And now, back to the playbook.
Wow,
Yeah.
Ken.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. And around that, there's also that element of self-sabotage, right? It's a frustrating thing when we do it.
So sorry to interrupt. I didn't properly answer your question, and I meant to. I'm going to go back just a second. So why the numbers? Are the numbers important? The numbers are measuring sticks. So the reason I brought up like weight loss and, you know, if you gain it, you'll lose it back if you haven't changed your identity. That's why when people go, I'm going to lose 20 pounds because I have a high school reunion coming up in November and I want to look great. I want to be able to wear the dress or the suit or whatever it was that I wore back then. And I want people to go like, ooh, you got your stuff together. But it doesn't change their identity in any way. It's one event focused. They're aiming for that event. Their brain almost can't wait for that event to just be over so it can get back to its normal self. Do you know what I mean? There's been no identity change. Sometimes you see people put that weight back on in days, weeks, you know, depending on how much it was. So the number by itself doesn't mean anything. If there's an identity shift and then clearly set goals that are realistic, then absolutely those are great. Those are kind of check-in points and how am I doing? And you build those along the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. How the identity drives that behavior kind of being inherent rather than just one metric to hit. So
So
clear.
when someone tells me that I'm coaching, I'm going to lose 30 pounds, I'll go, okay, cool. And what do you think of yourself in this area? Now, if you can get someone from moving from, I want to lose the 30 pounds because I got the prom coming up or the reunion coming up, to completely changing their identity, like something that's impactful. And usually for that identity to be impactful enough to stick, it has to involve other people. So with people with kids, it's easy to kind of get that leverage because it's like, oh, well, I'm a model for my kids. They do what I do, not what I say. So even though I'm trying to feed them well, if they see me as being an out of shape, overweight person, they're going to model that behavior. And so now I've got some leverage and now maybe they move towards, well, but maybe I can show them a better way. Maybe I can show them that you can be fit at any age. Maybe can show them that you can run marathons into your 50s or 60s or 70s or whatever it's going to be. And you can live healthy to over 100 years old. And now all of a sudden you see this new identity forming of not only is this a place I could get to, it's a place I have to get to because there's
Right.
people counting on me. And my failure to do it will result in, not to be overly dramatic, but I've done this to myself in different areas. My failure to do this will result in everybody in my family tree having shorter, less fulfilled lives. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go. I gotta do it. You know what I mean? I gotta set the example. I gotta set the
Yeah.
example, right? In whatever area it is.
Yeah, I really like that external kind of motivation. Sometimes it gets you over the line.
Listen,
It's a catalyst, you
you
know?
want leverage at the beginning. If you're going to coach yourself, you want leverage. Like, why are you trying to do it? Again, the prom or reunion is not enough.
Yeah.
Family, that could be enough. Living longer, that could be enough, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people wait until a doctor says, like, you're going to die if you keep eating this way, right? Or you're going to die if you don't exercise or whatever. Or you're going to go broke or lose your house if you don't change your financial blueprint or whatever. And then finally they're, you know, snapped into action. But it's not that we want to be motivated entirely by the downside, right? The downside can be a great lever to get us into action. And then we eventually want what we want our sights set on is the future. It's not fear of the past. The fear of, if I keep doing this, might have kicked us into action. And now it's like, yeah, but as we solve this, as we do this and that, I can provide a better life or a better example or contribute or whatever, right? So we really want to be pulled towards the compelling future.
Completely understand that. Now, Ken, as leaders, parents, peers, even, our words carry immense weight. And the identities that we impose on other people and the words and labels we use on them are really important. But also, to what extent do you feel like we need to guard the identities we enforce on other people?
I think we need to be careful of, how you label people. Someone that we talked about in the limiting beliefs episode about, somebody that says, I'm just suck at technology. I suck at technology. And pretty soon the people around you kind of laugh and go, you're not very good at this, or whatever. They make a joke, only reinforcing your own behaviors, right? And that's kind of a lighthearted one, but it still sticks, right? It's still an area now that you're stuck in. First of all, don't listen to what anybody else says. The most important voice is the one inside your head. And that's the one you got to work at. What I can tell you is when you're working towards something and people can see it, you don't have to tell them about it, but they can see it. That outside influence turns into either it gets silenced or it gets supportive in a hurry. People get inspired by, it's why we had shows on TV that like The Biggest Loser that lasted like 18 years because we're inspired to see someone completely transform, right? So yeah, the most important one is the ones in between our ears, that's the most important.
Yeah. And any practical takeaways, Ken, around this idea of identity and what it means to us and those around us?
I think one of the biggest takeaways would be if you want to change your life, don't ask about what you want to achieve. Like stop with the 15% body fat or the 30 pounds I want to lose. And instead ask, who do I need to become? And then you can build evidence for that identity through consistent action. And by the way, the consistent action on a positive side is exactly what the negative thoughts were to the negative side before. Meaning, if I'm going to run a marathon in a year, but I've never ran more than 3 miles in my life, but I've owned this new identity and I've got my why and why I'm doing it. And then I get out and I start running. Every day that I run, every day that I take care of myself, every day that I've stated the nutrition plan that I had or whatever, is just another little reinforcement that it's happening, right? Every day that someone manages their money better or consistent with what they said the plan was is a reinforcement of, we're doing the plan. We know where we're going. We're just following the plan now.
Right.
And so that becomes really, really important. And I'd say as a closing thought, the most powerful force in your life is not motivation, it's identity. Over time, your life tends to move in the direction of the person you believe you are. So start thinking about what you want to become in these different areas and then shape your identity around that. And that's all we got for today. Good to see you, Onika.
Thanks, Ken.
That's it for this episode of The Playbook by the Leaders Lab. Thanks for spending some time with us. We'd love it if you would subscribe, share the show, and leave a quick rating and review. Your feedback helps us grow and it helps more leaders and founders join the conversation. If you'd like to talk more about hiring, scaling, or selling your business, please email me, ken@theleaderslab.co, or connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll be back soon with more strategies you can put to work today. I'm Ken Eslick with Onika Kwatsha. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week in The Playbook.